All right, welcome to Justice ServedTV. Michael Bryant here, Linda Kenny Bodden there. We're going to be talking Tellus. We're going to be talking Reed. I know, we can't get past that darn case. Also, Birchmore, and I don't know, maybe some more.
Justice, where are you?
That is a very good question, Linda. Justice, where are you?
Here we are.
Where are you?
Where am I?
It's about us. Oh, I thought it was about
I'm
Justice.
actually in New York City in a different location than I would be at this time. Normally 12 to 2, I would be hosting something called the Law and Crime Network. But we are now full-time hosts of Justice Served, and we're going to be pumping out podcasts on different issues, long form, short form, your questions and answers. We're going to become a clearinghouse to have you try to solve some cases. We're going to watch you as you do it. A lot of things happening, Michael. Tell us why.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that too. Yeah, I was there 7 years. How many years were you there? 3 years? 4 years? 5 years?
6.
So Law and Crime has decided not to do any live trial coverage. Fine, it's their business. As I've been in this business many years. I've shut down many operations, some larger than Law and Crime, some smaller. Court TV, the original version, after I was there. What was that? A Current Affair, the second version, after I got there. So this is not new. All I can tell you is, Linda Kenny Bodden, you're doomed. That's all I can tell you.
Wait a second. Let me take up a prop. Okay, do I have a long life on this podcast with Michael Bryant? Let me see. This, by the way, came from your props at Law and Crime, which I picked up yesterday because I am just such a nice person.
Yeah,
you know what? Nice. It says, yes!
Oh, it does. I thought it might say, all signs point to no. Okay.
Yes.
So yeah, the magic 8 ball there, I would use that to determine the answer to many very tricky legal issues. So take good care of that for me. What else do you have there that was in my bin? I didn't get a chance to go back in there. Oh, it's Captain America. He made a lot of appearances. Very helpful when discussing murders, and how things may have happened. And Johnny Depp. Yeah, I remember. I remember Jack Sparrow. Yeah, it's like, is this an episode of This Is Your Life? Where's Ralph Edwards? Look him up. Is that John Cena? That's John Cena. He would often play the combatant with Captain America, depending on the nature of the crime that we were trying to demonstrate.
Well, I now own them. Or something.
So it wasn't I'll pick up your stuff. It was I'll steal your stuff. Okay.
Okay. That's what we're at. We're a crime show. Okay, Michael, we got to get down to real business.
It is technically our Q&A day, so let's do some Q&A. We still have a lot of Karen Reed interest. What a shocker. But we also have Tellus and we have Birchmore. Those are the three keys that I'm going to focus on for the time we have. Let's start with Tellus because a juror spoke out. Obviously, as we know, the Robert Tellus case, he was accused of killing Jeff Garman, a writer for the Las Vegas Review-Journal, because he wrote some nasty things about him in Tellus's role as a councilman. Said things were not so nice at the office. There might have been an affair. Anyway, the prosecution said he killed Garman because of those news stories. So he's found guilty. And I say that hesitatingly because, as we've learned from this juror, it was not cut and dried like many people watching this case unfold felt it should be. I don't know. I haven't checked my fingernails lately, but I don't think I have anybody else's DNA under there. I'm pretty sure. Maybe my wife.
Have a wife and your dog.
Maybe
Domino.
Some doggy DNA. Yes, from Domino. Yeah. But if it's somebody that I don't know, other than through the articles that have been written about me, probably not great to have the DNA under the fingernails of the victim.
No, it's under all that. I probably have your DNA, depending on how much it is.
It's definitely transferred.
I have just transferred, right, and some of it, and my fingernails are long and all, and I'm kind of scraping this. And by the way, right now, probably under all 10 of them. But you and I, I mean, because I can identify the source of where this came from. But I don't think that Mr. Garman was like in that kind of relationship.
I don't think he was playing
Tellus.
With one another. I don't think they were playing with one another's toys, if you know what I mean. So
and forensically, it's very difficult to get. There's been studies on this DNA from a perpetrator under your fingernails, unless you have really good. It's very difficult. Unlike CSI that you see on TV.
Of course. So when this went to the jury, I think most people were take us put aside Tellus's weird narrative testimony and the fact that he's a very unlikable dude. Put that all aside. To me, the DNA was the linchpin. So when we hear from this juror number 6 that it was 4 for not guilty, after they had done, they wanted to review some video, they wanted to review photos, and that shifted the numbers a little bit, but it was still 8 for guilty and 4 for not guilty. That blows my mind.
Well, you know what? But it's different when you have somebody that's been elected. We don't know how many of those people had voted for him, right?
Oh.
So I always find that in election cases, that there's always that little quirk, because maybe they think, well, if I voted for him, did I vote for a killer? And I'm not. I would never do that. So I'd be interested to ask the follow-up question to those jurors: did you vote for Mr. Tellus when he was running for election? You know?
Yeah. I'm
that's
assuming
a bit of a
Voir dire
quirk.
did that. We don't know. We don't know.
I don't think they can. I don't think you can ask.
They can't ask about voting.
Right.
They could ask about campaigning, perhaps, or posters. Did you have,
Right.
that kind of thing.
Or
They could get
attend
a
any
clue.
rallies.
Yeah,
But
that
I
kind
don't
of
think
clue.
there's many rallies for being elected to be the probate clerk or something that he was.
That was what I mean. He was some sort of very low governmental official, but,
Right.
Yeah,
somebody
have
died.
trouble
It was like
voting
a
for
surrogate.
president.
We call it a surrogate in other counties, right?
Okay,
Yeah.
so that's what a lot of these questions are based on. This is from, I'm not sure if it's truly a question or it's just outrage. Obtuse Ones. Obtuseones. I don't know. Literally everything pointed to him. So it's bizarre for me to see how people could hold out. What am I missing? So one of the things they asked about, I don't know. Is that a rhetorical question? What you're missing? One of the things they were curious about was this photo. This was the photo of the defendant allegedly driving in the Denali, zooming by. Now, obviously, Mr. Tellus has no hair, bald, in court. And there was evidence suggesting he's always been close cropped or bald, right? So they looked at this photo, see the driver here. Looks like, either a misshapen head or, pretty full head of hair. And so they were curious about that. And they resolved it amongst themselves, apparently, that that's a shadow. Therefore, it could be a bald guy. But I'm looking at it. I don't know how that's a shadow. I don't know what the hell that is. But
you don't know. The photography is 2D, and God knows with the 2D what you're really seeing there.
What I don't know. I just look at it and say, what would cast that shadow on the top of the guy's head? Is there a small furry chipmunk or something in the car that would create that shadow? I don't understand.
That would suggest that that's not him. That's not him. But you never know what jurors do. But in this world of CSI, there is something. We have seen. And I think it's phony science, right? But we've seen prosecutors bring up people to say, "Oh, the gait matches, right? The gait matches." And so I think there were questions about his gait, right? Whether he had a hitch in his gait, right, or not. And of course, your gait can change from day to day if you have, like I sometimes do, exercise too much, and then all of a sudden, oh, my hip is going,
Hey, when I saw that video, I'm thinking, Kaiser Sose in in The Usual Suspects. That is a gait that this guy's gait didn't impress me one way or the other. He was a 62-year-old guy. He wasn't limping. And then they had that weird side-by-side where the one image of the exemplar of Tellus was the person walking toward the camera. The one from surveillance, he's walking across.
Right.
And the one from the interior office, it looked like it's slow motion. There were so many things wrong with the foundation for those two, that comparison. I found it totally useless.
Yeah, I know, but that's jurors making a comparison. Also, we've seen in other cases, somebody will take something outside that we know how, if I measure this, right, pen, I know its length. So then you can extrapolate that length against somebody who may be walking to see how big they are, how tall they are. And I think the jurors watching CSI have seen that. And that, of course, is not real, too, because you hunch a little bit, you go a little bit.
Or you have lifts in your shoes.
Yeah, but anything. But I think the jurors get hung up on that. So they were trying to, you have two kinds of jurors. One's are going to say, what do you think? Guilty, not guilty? You and I'd be like, okay, let's just sign the guilty papers now, right, on that case. But other jurors want to find for themselves.
Of course.
And there you go.
And we think, from what this juror said, juror number 6, they were basically those in the majority for guilt were trying to, get somebody in a headlock, and they try and convince them to see it their way, which they ultimately did, perhaps in a compromise version, because they made a deal, maybe in sentencing. They're not going to put the
Right.
guy away for life. They had the opportunity to recommend. Remember, it's just a recommendation by the jury. The court most often follows it, but technically it's a recommendation. They could have recommended up to life without parole. They gave the guy basically 20 years plus some enhancements. So that there was a deal struck in that jury room.
Yeah,
And
I
that
agree.
was, you
Yeah,
say
I agree.
guilty, he'll get out to see his kids, and I guess the mom's testimony during the victim impact
Right.
statements
And he
and the
cried. He
defendant's
cried when
statement.
his mom was on the stand.
Yeah, he also cried because his house got messed up when they did the search of his home. I mean, in comparison to some of the other things said about him, is that the thing that would make you cry? I'm not so sure. Anyway, I
Well,
think with something like this, they find what they want to find. If the 8 wanted to convince the 4 that were for not guilty that was him, then they said what they had to say, and they convinced the other folks.
yeah, but we got to be careful because we ask people to hold their own, not succumb to the pressures, but to just discuss the facts of the case. And we hope they
Yes.
came to that verdict, not because of some headlock, but for the discussion of the facts of the case, or because some deal was struck that everyone was agreeable for.
Yeah, we'll never know except for what the juror told us, which made us think, hey, if you do this, we'll do that. Okay, one more question on that. I'm not sure this is really a question. This is from Hippie Girl 1967. I don't see how they possibly could be deadlocked. The man was clearly guilty. So she's talking about, or maybe it's a guy just calling himself Hippie Girl. The same thought that I had when this thing went to the jury, which was, how is he not guilty? How does that happen? It just amazes me.
Right, the hat, the cut-up hat that that the person
The
that killed
hat
was
and
wearing
the
on camera
shoe and the
is in the house. The same car, even his wife. He says to his wife that car has differences, and she says, "No, that's the exact same car. It's the same car. There are no differences." Right? That was pretty good right off the bat. So I agree with you. I thought when I saw it, I said, "Oh, that's it." And there was something called motive. There was a motive for murder.
And even though he said, I think in his testimony, he said that he didn't really give it much thought one way or the other as to whether he was mad about those not so flattering articles. I mean, that just doesn't ring true. Why don't you just say, yeah, pissed me off. I'm not going to kill anybody,
Right.
but it pissed me off, because that at least rings true. Okay, one more. This is from Interaction NO 9110. Talking about the defense attorneys doing a fine job. But as it relates to sentencing, which we were just talking about, I don't like juries deciding sentences. It should be with the judge, who takes the law, not emotions, into consideration. Why isn't that the way it works? Well, in some jurisdictions it does. And, it's not every jurisdiction that even asks for the jury's recommendation, except in death penalty cases. That's very common. I was a little surprised that in Nevada they asked for their recommendation on less than death penalty cases.
Right, and in enhancement cases, there's circuit cases where if you're going to enhance a sentence because of prior convictions, the jury has to find that the reasons for the enhancements exist. That's the United States Supreme Court case. So there are cases where the jurors have to decide something that will either affect the sentence or will be the sentence.
So that's the reason it is done like it's done. Interaction number 9110. Okay, so now let's back up the bus to our favorite case.
Well, let's back up the bus to the beginning of the show, because I noticed that you got the memo that we're wearing a red chair. I'm wearing a red dress. You're wearing a red shirt. These are not our long crime colors. These are not the Kansas City Chief colors.
No,
these are not even the YSL Young Thug colors. So I just would like to mention that right off.
So you're not a blood.
Now that we're non-tethered here into what we can say in our own show, I do want to talk fashion.
You're not a blood. You're not in the blood gang. Okay. We're talking Karen Reed retrial. Since Proctor will be, this is from Fine-Experience 2890. Since Proctor will be testifying again, I guess,
maybe.
Are they able to bring up how he was rehomed after the mistrial? That's
I love that word, rehomed. We use that upstate too. I've heard people use that in terms of animals being rehomed. Chloe was rehomed too. That was, if you don't know, that was the Albert's dog of 6 years, Chloe, who had a propensity for being vicious and put somebody in the hospital. Supposedly that's Chloe's claw mark on it goes the other way, but I can't go the other way in this thing where I'm all tethered in myself and all. And then Chloe just disappeared, and no one has heard from Chloe again after John O'Keefe died.
So this question references, of course, lead investigator Proctor, who after trial 1 ended in mistrial, was first disciplined, suspended, and I think he's been officially fired, but doesn't mean he won't appear in trial number 2, currently set for January.
No, I don't think he's going to appear. And I think there's going to be other issues. I think that they were considering that during the trial. I think it's Brady material, which means that it would help lead to the innocence of Karen Reed, and that they didn't tell the defense. And I think all of these little dirty laundry things are going to come out. And as a matter of fact, the defense really forced the prosecution to call the Proctor factor, as you call him, right? Because there was a question, couldn't they present the case without it? Sure, they could have presented it and just let the defense say, where's Proctor? Yeah, but
there's no doubt that, and I think after the fact, having heard Proctor, you think, well, maybe it would have been better not to see. Because in a normal case, no lead investigator testifying is a red flag for the prosecution's case. But how bad would it have to be to not put him on rather than put him on? Proctor bad. That's how bad it would have to be. Proctor bad. So even if he is on a Brady list, as you know and as you suggested, doesn't mean he can't testify. It just means the jury will be informed why he is a Brady witness.
Yeah, and remember, we still have the issue of whether or not the jury found not guilty on the top 2 counts, whether they believed, despite his testimony, that there was some voting guilty on some of the lesser included counts, because they were, I hate the word hung.
Hung, yes, I know.
They were in disagreement.
You're going to need some therapy about that.
I definitely am. Disagreement about what the verdict should be. Some may have felt maybe she did hit him. Some may have felt maybe he fell backwards and hit his head. I don't know, because we haven't heard from the entire jury yet. And I assume that at some point we're going to see them on. Well, I'd like it to be on our show, Michael, if they all sit down with us and we talk to them, because we're no holds barred. We don't have those rules that the main networks have. We can let them talk and listen to them. So if you're a juror, call us.
Let's see if I've got more on. There's one about discovery. I'm going to skip over that one for now. Sorry. Maybe we'll come back to it. Let's see. Oh, this is interesting. From You Gotta Move That H. I wonder if her defense could question why the suit doesn't name the other police officers who were at the bar. Okay? One of 2 bars, McCarthy's or Waterfall. Surely, even if off duty, I told you never to call me Shirley. They had
Tell people where that's from. Tell people where that.
Everybody knows that from Airplane. Come on. Who it was? Leslie
Nielsen.
Yeah. Surely, even if off duty, they had some responsibility to prevent drunk driving. Well, that's interesting. That's a big question.
Interesting.
You go to a bar. There happens to be a cop in there. You happen to be drinking, and it becomes clear, and I'm not saying it was in the Karen Reed case clear that she was over drinking, but if you believe the evidence, 9 drinks over a couple hours, I'm sloshed, I'm on the floor. But does the cop have some duty to get up and say, you're not going to be driving, I can't let you out of here? I don't know.
Interesting. Really interesting. I think in some states, by your dereliction of duty, it could be some kind of malfeasance or misfeasance.
I mean, obviously, it would be the right. As I like to say, try to do the right thing. I think it would be the right thing for a cop to do, just, because wherever they go, they're a cop. They may not be on the clock, but they're a cop. And are you just going to let something happen, or potentially something happen that might affect somebody else, injure somebody else, kill somebody else? Yeah. It's an interesting question.
It's interesting, especially since in many jurisdictions, police officers are under their contract are considered on duty 24 hours a day. Right. All right. And that's why they're allowed to carry guns 24 hours a day. And that's why if they shoot somebody, even when they're not on the clock, but they're on duty per the contract, they get the qualified immunity that doesn't let them be sued. So it's really a complicated question, but a really interesting question.
Yep. That was you got to move that H. Okay,
Oh, you
from
got to move. Yeah, that's why we like a viewer interaction here. Come bring it up, come in with the questions because that's a fabulous question. We hadn't
it
really thought
is.
of it.
And as we've mentioned before, anybody that wants to come on and espouse their beliefs, their arguments, their positions, let's do it. Let's mix it up. Uh,
Yeah, we're going to make this a viewer participation show. Be on with us. Be our special guest on Q&A with us.
this is from Bert. I don't know, Bert Ippo, Burtipo, Bertipo. Am I losing my mind? Oh, that's a very difficult question to. Oh, that's rhetorical.
Oh,
Why
God.
are all of the comment sections on the news outlets filled with people who are happy about this, meaning the lack of resolution in the Karen Reed trial? How are people still believing she hit him when it is not factually possible? Well, I don't know if I would agree with that not factually possible part. We have independent experts saying it didn't happen.
Right.
I
Well,
don't
that's
know.
pretty good. That's pretty good evidence, right? For experts saying it didn't happen.
Yeah,
I mean,
but
you and I, when we started this case, Michael, when we were at that other network before we were doing this, we said, okay, this is going to be easily resolved. The experts are going to get up and they're going to tell us whether or not John O'Keefe's injuries were from an automobile, right? And then the experts got up and said, no, I don't
and here's
know.
why it
Could
couldn't be.
be,
Yeah.
right? And could they be from a dog? Yeah, they could be from a dog. And that's how this case ended up in such a mess with regard to that. Plus, you know what? These jurors are from the community. They know or think, obviously, that, and they've heard stories, obviously, that maybe some of the Canton police officers are not so great cops. Something we'll discuss in another
Oh
case,
boy,
the
yeah.
Birchmore case,
There,
right?
there could be a whole show just called Canton.
Right,
You know,
right. Like this whole, Karen Reed just did a whole thing where she signed autographs. She raised money for all her people that supported her,
and man,
and
she
there
said
was,
some stupid things. Oh my gosh.
well, that's you can't hold clients to. Well, sometimes anchors say stupid things too. I mean,
No.
sometimes even anchors on news networks do stupid things. I can think of one in particular one during the pandemic on CNN who did something pretty stupid, and he's still there. Okay, and it is a he. I will just point out to you, it's not a she. All right, but that's I get ahead of myself with
Yeah, I don't know where
that.
you're going. Can we get back on track here? So we have one more. Do we have one more question here? Oh, this one. I think this is a moment to educate. Real Mike Dexter asks, why would any of the bars be responsible? Nobody died of alcohol poisoning, and adults can legally be served alcohol. So I think the confusion here is that there is some responsibility when you serve people alcohol. Uh, whether it's a dram shop, remember those good old days from law school? There used to be laws called dram shop laws, which held a bar to a higher standard about serving people. It's a little muddier now than that, but there's still a duty not to send a drunk person out on into the night with their car keys. Okay, so
Where they
this is
go, where they enter for instance, the West Side Highway here in New York, going down the wrong lane and smack into somebody who's coming back from his bachelor party and killed the night before his wedding. So we try to prevent that from happening, but not
yes,
having
if you can. So this question basically is saying it's not, isn't the responsibility tied just to whether somebody has an alcohol related illness or death? No, that's not the line. If that were the line, bars would have it made because very few folks really die of alcohol poisoning. Maybe some frats it has happened in not too long ago, as a matter of fact, but not just a bar. So remember, the responsibility extends far beyond just what's the direct impact of alcohol on a customer. Oh, this is fun. This is from Orleansville. Could it be the O'Keefes know that they won't try her again? Again, the retrial set for January. Why else sue now instead of after the second trial? We talked about the statute of limitations. Massachusetts, 3 years, has then until January. Plenty of time. I mean, you and I have both done cases where you're filing them literally the day, your last day to file, just to protect the statute. This is not that case. So this question really says, well, what was the motivation to file the lawsuit 6 months earlier? Do you think it was because they don't want to wait for a new criminal trial?
I think they want to try to get her deposition. in the civil trial, take her deposition, not let her take the Fifth Amendment, have some judge say, as judges have said, well, this is a civil case, and if you take if you take the Fifth Amendment, then all your assets are, they can move to. Have all your assets taken away from you right now. So I think they're trying to put some pressure on her to say something in the civil case that could be used and be helpful in the criminal case.
Yeah, and obviously, if the criminal case proceeds to a guilty conclusion, then you just walk that conviction across the hallway to the civil case. It's a slam dunk winner, lower burden of proof, preponderance of the evidence for civil cases. That's basically 51%, and obviously much higher in criminal. So it's an easy win. That's why I think this question was, hey, just wait for that to happen. And even if the statute isn't an issue, they're thinking there's not going to be a second trial, so why wait? I can't say that's a totally wrong way to look at it. It's very possible there won't be.
Right.
Depends on, remember where we are with the jurors who said we voted for not guilty on counts 1 and 3. That's going up on appeal.
Right. That's right.
It may be resolved before the January trial date. Maybe not. We don't know. So hopefully it would be. We got a few minutes left, or should we switch to Birchmore, since it's
which kind of has a
sort of
natural,
related?
Yeah, a natural bridge.
And then you
and
can
by the way,
chat
we're going
about
to be talking more about Birchmore. We're going to have a whole episode on it that we're going to actually tape after this and then run it for you later on because there's so much to talk about in the case. But go ahead, Michael. What's our question?
So we'll go ahead and lay out the foundation of the case.
Okay, so there was a young woman who was 23 years old who was found in 2022. She was seated, hanging in her closet, strap around her neck. It turns out that the father of her baby, because she was also 3 months pregnant, was a police officer named Farwell, who had been with her since she's 13 years old as an explorer and started sleeping with her when she was underage, 15 years old, making that a crime. She later, as she became of age, though, became pregnant with his baby. She wanted to have the baby. She wanted to have his name. His wife was due to give birth to their third child. And the police found her in she lived in Canton. The Farwell was a Stoughton police officer who was also a detective, the next neighboring town. And the Canton police decided that this was a suicide. The same Canton police involved that with the Karen Reed case. The medical examiner had what we call a confirmation bias that she has a suicide. She was just upset because he didn't want the baby, and that's why she killed herself. The aunt of Miss Birchmore gets involved, hires civil attorneys, who then hire my husband, Dr. Michael Bodden, who looks at it and says, this ain't no suicide, baby. This is a homicide. And I know I don't know who did it because he doesn't say who does it, but this is a homicide. She has a fractured hyoid bone. She has bleeding under one of the neck muscles, and it's clearly a strangulation set up, made to look like a suicide. The feds then see that, along with the Karen Reed case that's going on, right? And they do a deep dive into it, and they hire somebody who also agrees with my husband, Michael, and said this is a homicide. And lo and behold, last week, the feds indicted Mr. I've been having predator sex grooming her since I've known her at 13 years old. By the way, 2 other officers involved, maybe his brother, maybe somebody else, who also had sex with her. And they arrest former officer Farwell. And that's what brings us to this question, I assume.
Yes, and that last comment you made about the other officers is key here. And did they find, I don't remember, was there a petechia in the petechial hemorrhages in the eyes?
I don't know because I haven't seen the autopsy reports, and I don't know.
Because I know that, it's
But
shades
right.
it's Epstein-esque, obviously
Right.
Jeffrey
So
Epstein.
seated, can't get that kind of pressure from a seated hanging.
The hyoid bone, that's the key.
Hyoid bone, right.
In fact,
And
many others have said, I've never seen a case in which the hyoid bone is broken in a suicide ever.
Well, and a seated suicide, but in Epstein it was 3 bones, one here, one here, one here, and he's never seen that. You can have a hyoid bone broken in a suicide, but not in this one the way she was found.
And I learned this. I think I learned through Epstein, and I can't remember if in this case it was similar, but they called it an incomplete hanging when you're not hanging from the ceiling, but where you're on your knees or on the your
I don't know.
on the ground. Yeah, it's called an incomplete hanging. That's what it was with Epstein. In theory, if he did that, I don't think he did. But that's how they found the body. It's basically you're leaning forward from a seated position or a position on the ground, leaning forward and hanging yourself that way, as opposed to from a ceiling.
Like one of my clients did. Unfortunately, Aaron Hernandez, who hung himself, who killed himself in prison.
And he did that with the incomplete hanging.
No, that was a definite.
Yeah, that was not controversial, right? I mean, there's no
not
suggestion
controversial.
otherwise. Okay,
No.
so fine. This is from TGene5377. I see we've already gone past 30 minutes,
Yeah.
but you know what I say? The hell with it. We're in charge of this operation. Okay, TGene.
Let's answer this, and then we'll answer more when we do the Birchmore.
5-3. Yes, this is the question. Finally, it's not over, but the feds are involved. That's a question mark. But the feds are involved. This pig is going to go to jail for a long time. Now, what about the other two scumbags? I looked that up. That's a legal word. What about the other two scumbags who abused this poor girl? And you alluded to that. Do you think they're going to go down?
I don't know, but I assume there may be something. The only thing I see is that because the feds don't have really a murder statute, they indicted Farwell on a civil rights statute that said he killed somebody as a victim because they were a victim or because they were a witness. And so the question is the statute of limitations over for prosecuting somebody who had sex with somebody who was underage for the other officers? But of course, then there's a question: were they ever asked about it? Did they lie about it? There's a lot of things we don't know.
I mean, did they try to avoid detection? I'm pretty sure they weren't out in the open about it. That'd be my guess. And so if you try to hide something you've done, you can't then seek the protection of the statute of limitations.
We don't know. The police investigation found that Devine and William Farwell also had sexual relationships with Birchmore when she was an adult. So both Farwell and Devine have denied wrongdoing.
Yes, and then as soon as she of course in Massachusetts, it's 16 years old, that's a crime in itself. But the age of consent in Massachusetts is 16, and she was.
I don't think we've heard the end of this all.
Yeah. So to be continued, and we are going to talk about this. We're going to have our own little discussion on this case in a little more detail coming up soon. So watch for it, whatever that means.
This space, we'll be telling you when.
Yes. Okay. I'm going to officially
send your questions. Share, like us, subscribe to us on our YouTube channel. Share, like, subscribe. I'm going to say it again. Share, like, subscribe. Right.
Share, likes, but that's SLS. Okay. Share, like, and subscribe. Okay. Next time.